Price, the director of Dune Drifter. Welcome to Science+Fiction Trieste.
Oh, thank you very much.
But no, listen, most people know you from Colin, 2008, and of course it was £50, the £50 zombie movie that sort of got you headlines all around the world. So fill us in from what's been going on since then.
Oh, well, it's interesting, really, from my perspective at least. I'm working. The weird thing is that it's been what happens. I sort of fell into development quite a lot, so I found myself writing lots of films and TV pitches that never got made. But I was like, oh, this is a great way to earn a living. I'm just sort of writing things, and then I think I started to panic a few years back. I thought, shit, I haven't made anything for nearly 10 years. I should probably make something. And then we sort of got Night Shooters together pretty quickly, which is a sort of action movie about a film crew who witness a gangland murder and have to use their filmmaking skills as weapons to defend themselves from these bad guys that want to kill them for witnessing the crime. So we've got a stuntman who's a martial artist and a special effects guru who's, blows things up using the plastic explosive from the building they're in. So I sort of did that, and and then producing a few things in between, and eventually Dune Drifter. So so it's been busy from my side, but possibly doesn't look that way to anyone looking in, because nothing got made until Night Shooters.
But because even Martin Scorsese mentioned Colin, didn't he? So your profile was quite massive when the film came out.
Yeah, but also at the same time, it's a very, very cheap, grotty looking film made at a time where I think the filmmaking tech was starting to evolve. So 7Ds came along not long after that. And so I think that there wasn't really much to sort of brag about in the fact that we made a film. So I don't think that opened doors in the way that I think people might expect. Certainly not in the same way as for, say, Gareth Edwards the year after. So I mean, it was what it was. Is a little movie that I'm really proud of, and has definitely helped me pay rent. So that's the main goal in life, to fuel my increasing alcoholism and rent, maybe food.
All right, let's go on to Dune Drifter. I mean, where does your love of science fiction come from?
It's always been there. I never really realized how much I loved it until I was a bit bored one afternoon about 12 years ago, and one of these crappy sort of like, how well do you know sci-fi? Here's the hardest sci-fi quiz popped up on someone's social media wall, and I just went, let's have a look at that. And it was quite a tricky one as well. I was like, oh, I know that sound effect, I know the robot they're trying to hide there. And I sort of realized, oh wow, I kind of know my way around this genre quite well. And so it's the whole spectrum. I mean, I think aside from horror, it's probably the only other genre I can think of that has a vast subgenre of other films that you can really embrace and enjoy and get excited by, from so bad they're great to really fun, pacey sci-fi, and real slow burn, sort of like thoughtful what is humanity sort of sci-fi, and I there's room in my heart for all of them. So it's always been something that's in there. I just always felt that there were things about the genre making a film on the level that we had to make Dune Drifter on that I kind of wasn't keen to. Like, I didn't want that fuzzy shot in front of a green screen kind of look that was very intangible to me. I wanted something that felt like it was like you could touch it. So when the sort of little budget came in for Dune Drifter, I thought, maybe we should make something as a sort of trial run. And my girlfriend said to me, you love this genre. This is an opportunity for you to do everything you wanted to try. Why don't you just give her a go? And I went, yes, I should think about things like this. You're correct. I should think more like a director and less like a producer. And so, I sort of wrote the film based on the budget we had, and then we made.
Yeah, that's interesting to me, because you got the budget first, and then you came up with the concept. So basically, you were tailoring what you were writing to what you could afford.
Yeah, pretty much. I think the initial idea was to look at where we would film. Because I think initially we thought Norway, because I've got some contacts in Norway, and I thought that'd be, it would probably be cheaper than Iceland, and there are some similar looking sort of spaces there that we could have used for the story. And my producer Michelle was great, and she looked into Iceland, and she looked into both and said there's very little difference in budget. So here are some images. Which ones do you like as a location? Because we didn't have a budget to scout it. We just had to look at images, and I had to write around those images. And she said, right, you picked everything that's in this one little area in Iceland, so I think we should go there. So that was it. So it was a skeleton crew running around with a camera. It's very similar to Colin in a weird way, where like no frills. We just went out there with our team. Once the payroll was covered, it's like, what do we got left? This is what we have to play with to make a film. So we had to fall back on any tricks we could come up with to get a film made for no money, essentially, because once payroll's covered, there's not much left.
How did you pitch this to the actors? I mean, was this part of the adventure? You told them, you said, well, look, we're going to do this, and it's going to be really great fun, so let's go for it.
Oh, I think I was very clear about how it'll be tricky. I said this is going to be a very difficult sort of shoot because the weather in Iceland, I'd been to Iceland a few times for work and on a holiday, and I was aware of how the weather can just change like that. And even though we were going when there wasn't snow, because I didn't really want a snowy landscape, I wanted to see the sort of the volcanic rocks and the black sands and stuff. I figured it would be quite tricky, but even then we weren't quite aware of how tricky, because we would it was as bad as this. We would get ready for a shot and hail would come in, and I go, right, okay, it's coming that direction, it's hitting the lens. If we film a shot after this in that direction, it's going to blow over the lens. We're not going to have any rain on the lens and it won't read on camera, so let's do that. And then we'd get ready for that. Then the wind would change again. We go, okay, shit, quickly, everybody over that way, go. So it was that kind of frantic approach to shooting. But the team, we've worked together plenty of times, so it was never a problem, at least as far as the crew were concerned. Phoebe was new to our sort of little gang. She'd not done anything with us before. I'd worked with Phoebe previously, but she hadn't done anything with us before. So I think it was a case of like, keep up. This is what we're doing. And she's a very well prepared, well equipped actor, so she was able to do exactly that. So it was fun in retrospect, and I think I kind of enjoyed myself at the time too. But the only thing I wasn't enjoying was how uncomfortable everyone else was, because you feel like you're supposed to be looking after everyone, so you want everyone to be as comfortable as they can be. But luckily we've got a really tough team and they just muscle through it, and I was so honored to have them working with me.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you've said your love of Roger Corman and Charles Band really sort of put you in sort of like good stead for this. I mean, they're well known, of course, for like cutting corners and doing the best they can with what they have. So you think you're following in their footsteps in some way?
It's more like those guys got it right to a degree of how I wanted some of this film to play out. So let's look at what they did and embrace that, really. So I think in the case of like Corman and Charles Band, like things like Arena, which had so much scope, but at the same time was very like, oh, what have we got here? Let's grab that and spray paint this. There we go. Now it's sci-fi. We sort of leaned into that a little bit with some of our tech. And it had everything feel much more interesting with switches and flicks and fun little monitors that we could use. So, but it was mainly Battle Beyond the Stars in terms of the design of the ships that I really looked at. And me and David Ross was the guy who built our miniatures. We spoke a lot about, that kit-bashed aesthetic that we loved, that you saw quite a lot in the 80s. So it's kind of that really that we wanted to sort of emulate, but then sort of try and tell a story with a more modern vibe. So, we've got a little bit more sort of, I'd like to think, earnestness in Phoebe and Dave's performance. We're not making fun of the genre. We just wanted to sort of play in that sandbox. I mean, even to the degree where I'm kind of like, I kind of chuckle quite a bit at the gimp-like space gimp villain costume, which is very out of those post-apocalypse movies. I was like, oh god, are people going to look at this and think it's terrible, or are they going to get behind it? But I really love the work our sound designer did on adding that sort of like leathery squeak to it as it moves, and that little breath and that we got in there. So I had a lot of fun. It felt like 3 films to me, if that makes any sense. So the first film is sort of a space battle movie, the second film is a sort of survival movie, and the third one is kind of Predator if Roger Corman did it.
And of course, you built the starship in your living. In fact, right where you are now. Is that where you
I'm in my bedroom at the moment. The living room just around there. But yeah, it was we fell into some luck with Neil Corble, who's been very generous with us, and he's Ridley Scott and Spielberg's sort of like practical effects guy. And he said, "Look, we've got." Is he Chris's
son?
Chris, yes.
Oh, okay. Because I knew Chris really well throughout the whole Alien years and Star Wars and all that. So anyway, oh, good.
Yeah. So Neil was great. He sort of said, "Oh, we got this little gimbal here. You can build a cockpit on that, and you can shoot here." And he was donating like parts of I think it was an F-18 or an F-16. It was amazing. But practically it kind of came down to the fact that on our budget, getting people to Longcross Studios was already something that was quite tricky. So what Neil did is he helped us out with loads of perspex. He just gave us loads of that. And so we cut perspex in, and we were able to make windows, and the best place to build it was my living room, and which again was really fortunate because of the pandemic. It was only meant to be there for a couple of weeks. It was there for 6 months. I live with my cinematographer, and I think, but even he was a bit like, there's that fucking spaceship. But we were able to sort of make up for what we couldn't shoot.
Did it take up the whole room then? I mean, was it?
It did for the main shoot, because we had projection screens, everything. Because there's no green screen in the film.
Right.
It's all sort of front projection or rear projection. So it was in the middle of the room. But once we took a wing off it, slid it into the corner, and that's where it lived then for 6 months instead of our dining table. And we just shot like any pickups we needed in there, and any stuff with monitors. We had a little it's like a Pepper's Ghost effect for the front of the ship. So whenever you see like Alistair Curtin, who played Colin, pops up to give a little briefing at the beginning of the film, and you see him in this little monitor, that was a piece of perspex where we just angled a little screen so that it played the sort of this transparent sort of version of translucent sort of version of this guy. I thought it was really good fun. I really had a great time playing all the practical effects.
You mentioned Neil Corble. I mean, you did have some good people actually on the crew. I mean, like your stunt choreographer and all that stuff. I mean, the guy from Hannah and the guy from Harry Potter and things. I mean, where'd you get a hold of him?
Marcus is there's a really interesting thing with stunt guys is that when they work and they're quite young, it's they're aware that there's a time limit on how long they can throw themselves through glass windows and do fights. And I think Marcus was one of the smarter stunt guys who very early on said, I want to coordinate. That's the direction I want to go in. So he started coordinating very quickly. And I kind of met him on a commercial that I was directing. And so I said, we got on quite well. We started chatting about things. He said he wanted to act. And there's a role in Night Shooters I'd written for him. And he came along and did that. He didn't do any choreography on that, although I think he did sort of muck in because he was like, I can do this. And so the fight evolved slightly. And I just got on with him really well. And I think that we started speaking about other films. And he's always someone I chat to about stuff. And he always offers to do something. I always offer him a part. So he played the sort of cowardly pilot at the beginning of the film, which we didn't get a chance. And this is another thing that was budget constraints, is that we had initially we were going to have names of the characters on their armor, but like we'd run out of money to the point we couldn't even afford to print that stuff out and stick it on. And before I sound too cheap, you might think, well, why didn't you just buy that? I wasn't getting paid enough to be able to pay. I was like, no, rent and booze first. So what we did was we were going to have his name, and his name would have been Melon, which is Welsh for yellow, because he's a little coward. And I thought, that'd be quite fun. So little things like that. But Marcus is great, and he designed the physical fights you see on the planet's surface. And so he's just someone that I get on with really well. We're already talking about doing more films, and he's a really good buddy.
Well, yeah, because you mentioned like Gareth Edwards before. I mean, this is sort of like the monster's ethic, isn't it? I mean, Gareth did more or less the same as what you're doing. Okay, he did it 10 years ago, But you followed that template more or less.
Yeah, I emailed Gareth to say, like, you know, I totally ripped off how you made monsters doing this, and it was the film I referenced the most. Even though there's a shot in there that I rip off from Rogue One, it's basically how he made monsters, which is, you know, looking at what you've got and adapting to use that environment in the best way possible, which is the only way you go somewhere like Iceland, sight unseen, and be confident enough to get, you know, the images that we got to tell the story. To tell the story first, to try and make them look pretty, was always secondary. But we were lucky enough to have good locations to be able to do both. So yeah, Gareth was at 100% the reason I thought we could do it. In fact, there was a scene that we didn't end up doing where we were going to have like a gigantic monster behind a mountain-sized monster. I thought that'd be like a fun little thing just to have. And but again, we have to shoot that in super slow motion. And our puppeteer could not get out of he built a puppet that was incredible, but it needed about 7 people operating it to give it the weight.
Right.
It was only him and his wife, so that's why you don't see too much of it in the bit where it's attacking the the spaceship. Is because, you know, the COVID lockdown did sort of throw a lot of spanners in the works that we had fun getting around, and those ideas that we wanted to do in this film, I guess we can just sort of keep sticking our pocket, bring them out for another film somewhere in the future. Sure. Get to make more.
I mean, the thing is, I mean, you know, the quality level is there. I mean, okay, we all know what restraints you had, but it looks great, and you know, it does actually deliver on, I think, on the production value in a way that is quite surprising when people hear your story.
That's really kind, Alan. Thank you so much. It's because I'm still at a phase where we really only just finished it. It was supposed to be finished in April, and because of just the way everything went, there wasn't as much pressure on us to get it finished by that date. And because we were doing so many things practically with projection, there were a couple of key moments we'd left till the end to shoot. But of course, we couldn't shoot them now because, you know, no one could come to the flat. We couldn't get the projection system or the team together in a responsible way. So so to me, I see, if I was ever to tile my bathroom, the mess that would look like, that's how I see this film at the moment, where I'm like, oh my God, do we get away with that? Do we get away with this? Do we get away with any of this? You know, I'm only joking about my flirting with alcoholism, but I haven't seen it entirely sober yet. Every time I watch it, I've just been like, it's a gin. I'm going, okay. And by the end, I'm like, okay. I think we get away with this. So I'm not at the phase yet where I can step back and look at it and go, oh, wow, we did that. That's cool.
And when does it get unleashed? I mean, obviously, Fright Fest has it, and, you know, Science+Fiction has it. So what's its trajectory? Where's it going after this?
It should be getting released in December. So I think that's on all platforms. I think there's like a DVD. This is the UK and US. Those have been sorted. I believe we sold to Japan. So I think those are the 3 territories coming out in. I know in the UK it's around about December it's coming out.
Okay, great. I mean, is it going to get any better? I mean, you know, for the last 12 years, you've sort of like it's a kick and a scramble for you to get this stuff done. I mean, do you see yourself going on the Gareth Edwards, again, hate to use that comparison, but, you know, you should be somewhere where he is now, shouldn't you, in a way?
Oh, I think Gareth's the first to admit that, like, what his experience is rare, and it's kind of rare. I mean, you know, you've got others obviously like I know Rob Savage and Lee Cronin, and both of those guys got incredible opportunities this year, with Lee directing the new Evil, writing and directing the new Evil Dead, and Rob getting a 3-picture deal with Blumhouse. I think it's just work. I think that's the way I've always looked at it. And I mean, where we are as a production company, the trajectory that we're trying to set ourselves on. I mean, we only really started this company a couple of years ago to do night shooters. We didn't even get a company logo, I think, until this film. We haven't had time to put that together because we've been producing. I think we've got 5 films under our belt now, just from the last 2 years. So we produced 3. I've written and directed 2 of them. So it's Night Shooters and Dune Drifter. And we've got one that we're about to go into production as soon as the script is ready. And on top of that, there's a budget. There are budgets to do 3 more. So I'm waiting, but we're not going to do those till next year, and those are ones I'm writing and directing. So I've got 3 films to choose from. So
Are these in the same genres? More science fiction?
No, this is one is a straight drama, one is an action film, and another one is an action drama. So it's those three, whichever one my producer decides is the best one to make is the one we'll make. So I'm just going to get those three scripts ready before the year is out, so that we can make an informed choice by January.
Now, listen, you're obviously a Star Trek fan because we can see the numbers 47 in the movie.
Yeah. The Valiant as well was the name of the human cruiser, which is the initial name they were going to call the Defiant in Deep Space Nine. But I think there was a producer's decision. We can't have two ships with the letter V at the start of them in Star Trek, so you can't call Voyager and Valiant. You can't have that, so they call it the Defiant. It was like, oh, okay, so let's have a little nod to that. And plasma injectors and stuff. There's lots.
Have the actors seen it? I mean, do they? And what's been their sort of view of it? The fact that are they really pleased with what's happened with it and how it's?
I've shown some of them because the stage, I go through a few stages when I make a film, and once it's finished, the first phase is the people who make you feel good about it audience. so send it to the friends of mine, because I work with my friends a lot, so send it to the cast and crew who fall into that category anyway, even if they weren't working on the film. I'm like, look, I've done this, be kind. And then it settles. It's like, okay, let's have a frank conversation. So yeah, they've all it's been really positive, but at the same time I don't trust it. And the scariest thing is, normally from there, then I do a screening where I bring in a load of people, and the main thing I keep an eye on for that is reactions to each beat, because as a filmmaker, the only thing is make people make certain points or make people silent at certain points. If they do that, that's the best I can do. Whether they like it or not, that's a personal thing. It's got nothing to do with me. I can't really influence that any more than just telling the best story I can. So I have that screening. I don't trust that. Then there's a festival screening, which I try to see how much it lines up with the Friends screening. And with Night Shooters, it was great. Everything synced for several screenings. So this, I'm only going to, I don't know how I'm going to get a chance to see this film play with an audience.
It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
It's terrifying.
It's such a shame that you couldn't, I mean, if in a real world, you'd be in Trieste showing the film in the great Rossetti Theatre, and it would have been so beautiful, an experience for you to actually have. And I'm sorry that you're not going to get that, but it's a case of, I'm so glad you sort of like allowed them to have the film. And I think, the audience will really like it, I'm sure.
Oh, I really hope so. I mean, I said that in my intro that it was made for fans of sci-fi, so even if and not necessarily in that way where you have to like love sci-fi to get it. I mean, it's a human story. The tropes it falls into are familiar sci-fi tropes that we're aware of, and so the fact that there's a space war, we don't really go into what that war is about, because I don't think we need to. It's it's clear cut who our good guys and our bad guys are, and so our knowledge of other sci-fi will influence that sort of backdrop, and we can just get into more sort of personal stuff with sort of Adler and the themes of the film of just which I always however this translates, felt was connection, human connection, and how we always design things to try and avoid that. So the seats are designed so that they're facing in opposite directions. There's always a mask they're looking through if they're making eye contact, or a monitor they're looking at, and there's very few scenes where they're actually two human eyes without any barrier between them, and those are the scenes in the tent between the pilot and our gunner. And what I like about Yaron and Adler is that they really relished playing those moments, because there were only two scenes where they got to do that, and so they were like, right, we get to look at each other, so let's really milk this. And as actors, they loved it, and hopefully it resonates a little bit subtly for the rest of the film.
Okay. Well, listen, congratulations, Mark, on Dune Drifter. I mean, the audience is really going to like it. And thanks for letting Trieste Science+Fiction have it. And, we'll see you soon, I'm sure.
Yes, thank you very much.